brief. We're going to keep it quick and moving along.
Sorry.
We're going to keep it moving along just because I know folks up here have rules committee today. So just to, if we're going to try to get as many questions as we can, but if any questions could cut off, please feel free to, I'll be around for a few minutes. So feel free to please either ask me, but I know I'm not the person hanging out on the topic or whatever, but please feel free to also email and we'll help out that way. Just to address some questions that I got beforehand, just FYI, so the 7-day bills we're talking about are all bills that were enrolled, signed by the Speaker and signed by the President of the Senate by Friday, which means the Governor has until this Friday, March 8th, to take action on them, kind of similar to bills that passed at the end of session and had the 30-day timeline. We're now on the 7-day timeline for a little under 100 bills. So with that, I will turn it over to Majority Leader Sir.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you for coming out today to be with us for the last 7 days of session here. I think when we started this session, our caucus has made clear we had a couple priorities. Number one was protecting women's reproductive health care rights. We also said we're going to make some major steps on gun violence prevention. We're going to make major investments in K through 12. We're going to get the minimum wage raised in Virginia. And I think our 7-day bills reflect those priorities. I think it's important to contrast that, the clarity and the transparency we have about our priorities with those of the governor. Remember the governor, when he ran for office, he didn't have a platform until probably about the middle of September, when he finally put out his, whatever he called it, day one plan or whatever. But he often will not sit for interviews. It's very hard for, I think, many of you all to get clarity on what his positions are on things. And for the last 2 years, he's had a Republican-controlled House basically killing everything that we sent over from the Senate. And so he has not really been asked or forced to take a position on pretty much anything, which is of real importance to a lot of Virginians. And I think in the next 7 days, with the 7-day bills that we just sent him, Virginians are finally going to get to find out where he stands on things like protecting contraception, on firearm violence prevention, on the minimum wage, on other issues like that, which are big priorities to Virginia. And that's what we wanted to highlight for you today. I think the next 7 days are going to say a lot about the next 2 years. So having said that, I'm going to turn this over first to Delegate Herring, and then we're going to hear from a few other people about some of the specific bills that are out there for the governor to sign.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Majority Leader Charnel Herring, and it's so good to be with you all today, and thank you for being here. Virginia voters sent us to Richmond so that they could have their voices heard. They sent a message in November that they wanted representatives that protect their rights and freedoms. We heard what they had to say, and that's exactly what we've done in the last 54 days. On Friday, we sent several bills to the governor's desk under the 7-day timeline. These are bills that the governor has until Friday to sign. We're showing the people of Virginia that our majority is one that works for them to complete the people's business. One of the bills is HB 673, patroned by Michael Fagans. The bill considers low-income communities grants for Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund and help to ensure our most vulnerable communities have the tools and resources that they need to protect themselves against this ever-growing climate crisis that we are facing. 2 more bills that we are sent to the governor are in the 7-day timeline to address the Commonwealth's mental health crisis and aid Virginians in access to critical health care. The first is Mark Sickles' HB 1336, which will mean that nursing homes have the capacity to help patients experiencing a mental health care crisis. It will also ensure that people can get the right help that they need immediately during an emergency situation. And Senator Hashmi's SB 238 and Delegate Mondon King's HB 819 bills ensure that every woman has access to contraception, no matter their background or their income. The bill directs the insurance companies to include coverage for contraceptives, including available over-the-counter drugs. You see, women are perfectly capable of making decisions of when they will start a family. These bills are a critical step to keeping health care accessible for women in the Commonwealth, especially at a time when we're seeing a barrier to access becoming greater and greater in other states around the country. Each of these bills I discussed are passed out of the House chamber on a bipartisan basis, some which passed the House unanimously. The legislature has recognized the will of the people and I hope that the governor will also recognize their will and sign these critical pieces of legislation in the next few days. With that, I will turn it over to the Senate Privileges and Elections Committee Chair, Senator Aaron Rouse.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning. Good morning. I am very proud of the work Democrats have done in both chambers, the House and the Senate. That blue brick wall is steadily becoming the foundation that will uplift all Virginians. So let me give you 3 bills right now in expressing you how we have gotten to work and get results for the people of Virginia, putting bills on the governor's desk for him to sign. One of those bills is House Bill 136, patroned by Delegate Campbell. It allows the city of Staunton to reduce or waive utility connection fees in certain designated areas. It empowers the local government to address priorities effectively, demonstrating a flexible approach to urban planning and development. This is important because it potentially lowers the cost for new and expanding businesses. Senate Bill 189, carried by myself in the Senate. It's a charter change for the city of Virginia Beach, where over 81% of the people of Virginia Beach likes the election system in which they can elect someone to represent them, specifically from their district. It enhances representation, it promotes accountability, but also it ensures that our democracy is working for everyone in the city. House Bill 597 by my counter and colleague in the House, Chair of Privilege and Elections, Delegate Price, aims to enhance enforcement of Virginia Residential Landlord and Tenant Act by localities. This is a very important bill as well, because at a time where we understand housing affordability is an issue, this bill encourages landlord accountability, encourages landlords to maintain their properties to avoid legal actions, leading to better living conditions for tenants. It addresses non-compliance proactively. It promotes tenant safety, and strengthens local enforcement. And certainly last but not least, the last bill I want to reiterate to you is so important as Chairman of Privileges and Elections, is Senate Bill 606 by my colleague Senator Van Valkenburg. It mandates that the Commissioner of Elections to restore and maintain Virginia's membership in the Electronic Registration Information Center, better known as ERIC. And what this bill does is aiming to enhance voter registration and list maintenance through data sharing. Now this is very, very important because as we've seen just this last election cycle where over 3,400 Virginians were removed from the voting rolls. We want to ensure that this does not happen again. In a year where our democracy is on the line, and not only in Virginia, where Virginians will have to come out and safeguard our democracy, but we also have the accountability and responsibility to be leaders for our nation. That is why this bill and others similar to this bill are so important. And so I'm proud of the work, again, that both chambers are doing, and I want to reiterate that. We're no longer a blue brick wall, but this is a blue brick foundation. And everyone that you see up here with me are fighting tooth and nail every single day to ensure that every Virginian in our Commonwealth have a place where they can live, work, and protect their families, and make sure they can make a livable wage in this place we call home. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Chairwoman Tran.
Still work after that. All right. Good morning. I'm Kathy Tran, and I am incredibly proud to serve as chair of the Virginia House Democratic Colleague. Thank you to Senator Rouse, Leader Sorvell, and Leader Herring, and all of our colleagues here today. I am so proud of our work during session. The 7-day bills that my colleagues just highlighted are just a small sample of the legislation that we're sending to the governor to continue making progress for the people of Virginia. And as Leader Sorvell said, when our session started, we came to you to lay out, these are our priorities, and this is the work that we're going to be focused on throughout this session. Our Democratic majority has been really leaning in on making sure that we protect the rights and freedoms of all Virginians and build an economy that works for hardworking people throughout the Commonwealth. This was what we heard loud and clear were the voters' priorities in our elections last year and the work that we've been pouring our heart and soul into in the last 54 days. Some of the additional bills that are heading to the governor, I just wanted to highlight a few of those. Delegate Price and Senator Hashmi introduced and passed legislation to protect the right to contraception. We live in a reality where women's reproductive rights are under attack, especially in light of the recent Alabama Supreme Court IVF decision. We've worked tirelessly to ensure that what's happening in Texas, in North Carolina, and in Alabama is not going to happen here in Virginia. And this bill is an important affirmation of our right to contraception. We've also introduced a number of bills to help attract world-class educators to Virginia and ensure that everyone can work with dignity and respect in the Commonwealth. Delegate Clark and Senator Lucas introduced and passed bills reflected in both of our budgets to increase the pay for teachers. It's not complicated. As a mom of 5, 4 kids of whom are in public K through 12, I know deeply the need for us to increase our investments in our public schools, and that to recruit, retain, and diversify our educator workforce, we have to make sure that we're paying teachers what they deserve for their hard work and dedication to nurturing all of our kids. We'll also be sending to the governor Delegate Ward's and Senator Lucas's bills to raise the minimum wage, and also bills by Senator Boysko and Delegate Sewell to make sure that we provide paid family sick leave to Virginia's workers. There are people all across the Commonwealth who work 40 hours a week and sometimes significantly more, and they still can't afford basic living expenses. I think the statistic is that the vast majority of people can't afford a $400 emergency. Just think about that. That could be your car breaking down, something happening in your house, extra expenses that you have to pay for school or for transportation. People should not have to choose between putting food on the table and buying life-saving medication, or between going to their jobs and taking care of their families in a time of need. And as a child of refugees whose first jobs paid low wage or minimum wage, I know all too well the burden of economic security or economic insecurity that falls upon our children. Each and every one of our constituents deserve to work with dignity, and that's what we're striving to do. An overwhelming majority of the legislation that we've passed this session have been done so on a bipartisan basis. And that should come as no surprise to anyone. Every one of us, in all the corners of the Commonwealth, no matter our backgrounds, we just want to build a better future for our families. And the governor now has a choice as these bills head to his desk, and I hope that he will choose to stand with an overwhelming majority of Virginians. And I hope that we will continue to move Virginia forward. Thank you so much, and I turn it back to Morgan.
Right, I'm gonna lift it to you. Any questions? Yeah.
Yes, excuse me, this is a question for Senator Rouse. Might be an empty question at this point, but what's the status of cannabis and is there any hope left?
Thank you for that question. Again, the cannabis legislation that I carry was a part of a broad coalition, some of whom you see in this room right now, to get that bill to the governor's desk. But what you understand is that bill is trying to get at an illicit market. This illicit market that's running rampant throughout our Commonwealth. And so when you have set up a cannabis market, adult retail market, to ensure that safe products are on the street, we won't hear those horrible stories about, fentanyl diagnosis or fentanyl types overdoses. And so what this bill does is help make a safe environment, safe adult retail market to where Virginians can, if they, so to speak, to choose to partake in it, they can do so, understand that it's a safe product. And so right now, that bill has passed both houses, House and the Senate, and we shall wait and see. But I'm proud of the work that we have done to get that bill out of both chambers. And it was a long, hard road, if I may add.
Just to check to be sure, are the cannabis bills or the scale cans bills, which I think passed on the last day of last week, have they gone through the process of having everyone sign to trigger the 7 days?
No.
No, so all the bills that are 7 days are on LIS that say, it says enrolled by both inside and, headed to the governor's desk. So, those aren't one of them just because of the way things move.
It's a process.
Of the 7-day collective, how many are bills that were passed through the party line versus how many were, you had bipartisan support there? Any kind of ballpark figure on?
So unfortunately, I don't have an exact number for you.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a little bit under 100 bills, but, for like total that were sent to the governor, an overwhelming majority of those are gonna be on a bipartisan basis. I'm sure I hope that's helpful, but, yeah.
So I know you all have passed a lot of bills dealing with reproductive rights, but you chose to wait until next year to get the constitutional amendment process started. Can somebody just speak to that decision? Is that purely just getting it on the normal timeline, or is there any level of strategy to maximize attention on that for the 2025 elections?
Thank you. Delegate Herring and I carried the constitutional amendments for the House and the Senate, and we made an agreement together that waiting for all of the constitutional amendments until next year, which is the appropriate timeline, would be the most effective. However, we wanted our voters to understand that this is a priority for us, which is why we put them in this year. Thank you.
What part, so we're in budget negotiation times, what part of the 7-day deadline do you imagine it impacting negotiations with the governor's office at all? Is there, are you losing or worried about leverage with some of these bills in any way?
Well, we don't negotiate from up here, but, I don't know if you want to.
Again, it's the process. There's no magic plan. I will just say that governor has his bills on his desk. He needs to act by a certain time. The budget negotiation process, as my understanding, has started between the House and the Senate. It's all sort of a process that happens every year, as we know. So we'll see what results. I hope what results is for the better of Virginia, for everyone.
Sarah, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I guess just a follow-up on the budget process. Can anybody speak to what the most detailed update you've gotten from the conferees is, and whether the expectation is that y'all wrap on time?
I think that the most recent update is that we are in conference, just like a whole bunch of other bills this week. We're moving along, and the speaker has said that, we're gonna end on time. So just, we're gonna continue to work at the process, let the conferees do what they do, and not do that up here. Yeah.
Thanks for the question. I'm one of the conferees for the Senate, and we started meeting yesterday. We met for hours to go through the different issues. I am excited to share with you all that Chair Lucas has agreed that Metro funding will be part of the final budget, which was in question when we started the conversation. So we are making progress. We expect that we will be ready to go by the end of the week and to have a budget in front of the governor as soon as we adjourn.
Follow up to that, I know there's reports of the proposal for the Hampton Toll Road relief. That's potentially tied in with the arena for Northern Virginia. Any update on where that stands?
I was gonna say, we don't wanna negotiate from up here. This is where we are.
And just may I say, typically the budget conferees will have their own press time, and this is ongoing. So I think you'll certainly hear from them when they feel it's appropriate.
How are we doing on arena these days? What issues are helping and what issues are hurting? Like a wide range. I mean, folks from either chamber on this. Where are we on the arena?
So I'll just reiterate what Leader Herring just said.
That's part of the budget?
It's part of the budget,
Okay.
as we know, so it's just part of those ongoing conversations. I can take one more question. I mean, we're not, you don't want this? Yeah.
Warren, I want to be sure I didn't miss it, but on the 7-day list, are there any that the gun violence prevention bills that have been a priority?
Yes.
And they'll be on the LIS?
Yeah, so LIS, if you go under the signed by speaker, unfortunately, there's no good 7-day bill section. So you do have to go through all the bills that say signed by speaker and president, and at the bottom of it, it'll say the timeline for that. So, very sorry. Alright, so I'm going to wrap that up here. If all of my wonderful people up here can stay for a picture real quick, I would really appreciate it. But thank you all for coming. We do have to shuffle out soon.